Qatar is now a center for global capital. So, what makes its banking system attractive to investors? We sat down with a panel of experts at the Invest Qatar Pavilion at the World Economic Forum. Here are some key takeaways.
What is the Qatar opportunity, in your view, for international investors? Why is it so attractive?
For me, international investors look at three major things. One, predictability, which is clearly a word I'm sure that's going to be spoken about a lot this week, but predictability, certainty of policy to start off with, and the way that regulation works. So from a business environment perspective, people clearly look for what's the business environment like, what's the ease of business. From an outside-in perspective, there's a survey, the IMD Business Survey, IMD Business School published a survey, World Competitiveness, and in 2025 they published the results, and Qatar was 9th versus 5 years ago it was 17th. So outside-in view, good competitive environment for doing business. And then Invest Qatar, we're clearly in the Invest Qatar Pavilion. Having worked all around the world, people approach me saying, look, what do you think of Qatar? Should we base our business there? So I've contacted Invest Qatar a couple of times saying, look, I've got visitors coming. And within one night, it was like late at night, I WhatsApped, clearly with no business details in it, but I messaged somebody in Invest Qatar and said, I've got this person coming, can you help? And immediately came back, put me in touch with somebody who I put in touch with this potential party coming to the country. So very, very accommodating, welcoming. So predictability, ease of doing business, and the opportunity. And then from a banking perspective, banks at the end of the day are proxies of the economies in which they sit. So from all of our perspective, if you have a vibrant economy which is growing, that's great for the banking system.
Thank you, Bassel. I'm going to bring you in here. How do the economic stability, regulatory clarity reduce the risk for investors deploying capital in Qatar?
As Stephen was mentioning, predictability and stability are critical. If we look at Qatar credentials, I think, mashallah, it ticks all the boxes in terms of stability, regulatory framework that is clear, legislative efficiency, as you can see, the establishment of the Court of Investment recently, and I might say actually that 98% of any disputes were resolved in the same year in 2025. That gives at least some confidence for investors, and I think confidence in doing business is critical. And that's something actually for the banking sector in general, working as an intermediate between investor and business side of things. There is a regulatory clarity. There is actually a dialogue between the regulator and banks. There is always consultation from the regulator with the banks in terms of what kind of regulations and if it would help the business side of things or not. So I think all those factors add value to doing business in Qatar.
QNB is one of the most internationally connected banks in the region. How does your global footprint strengthen Qatar's position as a trusted gateway for international capital?
QNB today is in more than 30 countries in 3 continents. Our role today is a connector. We see ourselves as the financial ambassador of the state of Qatar. We build relationships, commercial relationships. And today, being based in a country with very strong fundamentals, we promote the opportunities that we see in the local market. We know Qatar, we know the GCC and the bigger Middle East. And that's the big advantage that we bring. We know how business is being conducted. We can guide and support international investors to do their investments locally. And we facilitate also their investment. And the good thing that we have in Qatar today is Qatar is offering partnership. Qatar is willing to invest with international investments coming to the country. And in different areas, be it technology, be it logistics, be it healthcare, be it education. So the country has so many opportunities to offer, and we promote those kind of opportunities.
What emerging digital frontiers will shape Doha Bank's next phase of transformation?
I think everyone is working on it in Qatar. It's part of our mandate. When I took over the bank 2 years ago, was guided by central bank to put this in mandate and to follow their strategy. And the third strategy, they announced it 3 years ago. We did a 360 transformation inside the bank to ensure that we are aligned with the market, especially in the app. And I think today our banks are looking more into AI. We are trying to implement it in the right way.
Thank you, Stephen. This is something that Commercial Bank are very hot on in terms of innovation and AI and embracing it to make banking in Qatar more efficient. Can you elaborate on what
Sure.
you're seeing?
I can, and when you have massive amounts of data, transactions, AI lends itself in particular well to transaction monitoring, anti-money laundering. So checks, you can use neural networks to see if there are any patterns and transactions that you need to screen. So yeah, we're well positioned. And this is not just us. If you read my colleagues, my peers' annual reports, you'll see lots of references to AI as well.
Basil, I think you're eager to interject here.
Yes, one of the key, I would say, KPIs in the efficiency ratios are the cost to income ratio, for example. Qatar banking sector has an average of between 22 to 25%, when the global average is above sometimes 60%. The regional average is above 30+%. That demonstrates the efficiency at the operational level of doing business in Qatar. I will not talk about QIB, and it's way below that. In general, that's one of the KPIs that people would be looking at to test efficiency in the banking sector in Qatar.
In terms of operational resilience, how important is that at every aspect of the business?
Look at it this way. Qatar has, or the banking sector in Qatar, has withstood real-life shocks, not testing. We've seen many shocks in the past few years that the banks in Qatar, under the supervision of the regulator and the Qatar Central Bank, has withstood all those shocks in a resilient way. Qatar Central Bank actually makes it mandatory for banks as well to be resilient in terms of business continuity, in terms of disaster recovery, in terms of ability to do business under stress situation, whether it's liquidity and others. And liquidity, I think, is the most critical one. We've seen that in the past. And I'm happy to say that QCB oversight, the Qatar Central Bank oversight of these matters, has helped banks as well to develop their digital transformation, cybersecurity, and information security. All those are important for investors to be able to have seamless kind of transacting, whether in or out. We have capital and profit repatriation that's easily accommodated. So I think all that adds to the resilience of the banking sector under the supervision of the central bank.
Mr. Khalifa, in terms of sustainable finance and attracting that international investment, what are your priorities?
First of all, if I look at the state of Qatar, I think it's positioning itself as the leader of sustainable finance on the region. Financial sector have been aligning the reforms with the national vision. ESG today is not a choice. It's a requirement. The regulator, our regulator, Qatar Central Bank, have published the ESG guidelines, which banks have to follow. Our international investors are demanding more progress on the same direction. In QNB, we have embedded all the ESG criteria in our own strategy. So we have developed a full framework that today caters for sustainable finance. we have focused on introducing sustainable financing products. So we are going in the same direction where the country is, and that have made it, or that have been perceived very positive from our international clients. A lot of international investors are coming to the country because of the compliance that we have today with the sustainable finance standards. It is an enabler for investment into the country.
Stephen, I saw you nodding your head there. You know, when we talk about ESG goals, how important is it for you guys to make sure that this is actually actionable? It's not just hot air, you know, we're going to do this.
Sure.
It has to be implemented, yes?
It's not a choice. And I start using phraseology I used at the beginning in terms of policy, country level policy, opportunity. The country itself has targeted investment in a 25% emissions reduction by 2030 compared to where it would otherwise have been through investments in green hydrogen, clean tech, etc. So it's not a choice. As Mr. Abdullah said, it's embedded.
I totally agree with Abdullah Al-Khalifa and other colleague that ESG is a mandate of the country. It become also a mandate internally for the banking sector. It is very important for us to continue and to implement it.
Basil, what makes Qatar's Islamic banking framework more attractive to international investors compared with other Islamic financial centers?
Islamic banking is part of the banking sector in Qatar. Islamic banks or the Islamic banking balance sheet or assets represent around 28 to 30% of the financial sector. As I mentioned, stability, clarity are key for any foreign investor. Islamic banking actually allows that. People used to say Islamic banking is complicated and so forth. It is not. It is banking that goes Sharia compliant at the end of the day, with much more clarity and transparency versus conventional banks. That's what makes it appealing for a big part of the population in general.
What is the single most advantage Qatar's banking sector offers global investors over other financial hubs?
We believe in a long-term relationship, a relationship that is mutually beneficial and helpful to both sides. So it's a kind of long-term commitment that we have demonstrated before, and we will continue to demonstrate following the steps of the state. We have gone through a number of crises over the last decade or so, and we proved resilience. We proved commitment to our clients. Even in the most difficult times, we did not stop supporting the relationship customers. And I think that was perceived very highly by our clients, and we will continue doing the same.
I think adding to Abdullah's comment there, I think the banking sector or most banks are consumer-centric, develop and innovate in order to satisfy our clients. At the end of the day, we're not doing it for the sake of doing it. We're doing it for the relationship. It's a partnership rather than just a number or customer number. No, it's more than that. It is personal. We support our clients in the good days and the bad. And I think that the innovation and the digital transformation that the banks have gone through has enabled it to prove resilient in the hard times as well as the good times.
Thank you. Stephen?
The value of relationships, I think, is key. And as I say, echoing the comments, people remember the banks when you stand by your clients during tough times. So clearly, we have stood by our clients through tough times, and they remember that.
I agree with all of what they said, but also trust, confidence, thinking outside the box, giving them better service. This is what the client look for.